from PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is Tar Heel Illustrated.com. Or, of course, we are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel. That's Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me from actually across the court over there. AJ, what's up? I'm waving at him right now. Very own publisher.
What's up, Jacob? How you doing?
Doing good, man. We're here to talk a little Carolina basketball. Obviously, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, another tough day for the Tar Heels. You know, it seems like we've had a lot of these conversations recently. Carolina dropping to NC State 77-69 on the court right there in front of us. And, Carolina dropping to 16-11, 8-8 in ACC play. I want to start off, though, AJ, with something that happened in the second half because I really thought it changed the whole complexion of the game. And it's the 27-9 run from NC State around the 10-minute mark or so. I believe Carolina was up by about 6 at that point. Kind of felt like we've had some of these discussions all year, really, AJ, of the next step for this team. And this goes back a month because this team's got a lot of next steps to take now. But there was a point when we were talking, the next step for this team is being able to, in those situations, put the foot on the throat of their team and pull away. Carolina had an opportunity to do that. They had the momentum. You could even feel a little bit of the air kind of deflate out of the building, and they didn't do it. State responds with a really big run. Game's over. Carolina never was able to kind of recover for it. But for me, that was probably the biggest swing in the game, and ultimately really is what, made it, allowed, NC State to end up winning this game by, 8 points?
Yeah, well, you're right. 27. Carolina had the ball 54-48. They had RJ misses a three from right over there with really early in possession, and I turned to Trent Scott and I said, that's one of the times they should have actually called a set play. I think that they run way too many set plays, but we can talk about that in the show again this week. We've hit on that a lot. My point is, I think sometimes they just need to freely roam. And some of the state players said, the media that I talked to, the coach state said that they were saying that they knew what Carolina was going to do a lot. We've heard that a lot lately. So that was a possession where, you call play, you run it hard, you get a good look. And if they go up 8 or 9 there, I thought State was getting tight. And you could sense in the building they were getting tight, and it was a little bit of nerves. Like, good gosh, when are we ever going to beat these guys? And RJ misses, State gets down the floor, and they score a couple of quick baskets. And that was during a sequence where Carolina missed a couple layups. But man, I'll tell you, Carolina got their butts handed to them the last 10 minutes, just completely destroyed.
It was bad, yeah.
It was in every facet of the game. State was 12 for 13 to close the game from the floor. Carolina was 5 for 22. Carolina was 1 for 8 in layups in that stretch. So, I'm a big believer that in order to get runs, you have to have stops. In order to stop runs, you have to have stops. But you also got to put the dadgum ball in the basket. Yeah. This team just is not very good at putting the ball in the basket. They have 27 guns to tell. We know who they are. They are who they are. There's nothing that they can say now that we're going to have to steer into a piece and say, hey, this is what the Tar Heels are saying. It's a matter of just playing better than they have and making shots. And they were in a situation there where they could have not stolen the game. They would have earned the win because I thought they did a lot of really good things up to that point. Leakey was fantastic on Quavy and Smith, but they couldn't stop Jarkel Joyner, especially in that stretch right there. They had no answer for Burns, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And that was a period where a veteran team that has played at the biggest stages, that has done some amazing things, that it's like, whatever kind of amount of in sync you need, whatever kind of stuff you need to hold a group together, it was completely missing during that stretch. Otherwise, it would have shown itself at some point, put the hammer on it, gotten a stop, got a bucket, and retaken control of the game. This club doesn't have that. If they had it, we would have seen it by now, because some of us in the media were talking right before we came out about trying to figure how many times they've had at least a 6-point lead inside 13 minutes this season and lost those games. And we came up with 6, and there might be more, but at least 6 times this team has had at least a 6-point lead in the second half with less than 13 minutes left in the game, and they've lost. Today was one of them.
Yeah.
And they just got, I think in that 12 or 13 that State had, the Pack had 6 layups and 2 dunks, 2 jumpers and 2 threes. At the rim, whatever they wanted. It was.
I'm transition a lot too. Yeah.
The appearance, a lot of people are saying Carolina folded, they quit. I don't think anything that happened. I just think that from afar, if you're not in that locker room afterward like we were, and you don't really have the access that we have to kind of have a better feel for things, I can see where it might appear that way. But the truth is, I think that there's confidence issues. I think that there is some trust of self issues, and just sort of here we go again human nature stuff that absolutely overwhelmed this team on the floor during that period. Because I saw a group that was playing as if they were sort of in control of the game. They were directing traffic out there to a club that was just clanking into things like on those bumper cars. You can't really have control on people clanking into you and you're running into the wall. It's like they were in 5 bumper cars out there and they were in no control of what was going on. That's what happened. And kudos to NC State for playing really well in that stretch. State is a better team. That's been proven this year. So if Jordan Kramer is watching, you were right, Jordan. So kudos to you. Props to you. But the Tar Heels, as we'll discuss here in a few minutes, they've got ridiculous number of issues and time is running out to fix them.
Yeah, to say the least. And agree, you hit the nail on the head. And shout out to Jordan for saying it too. I mean, I was on the court over here for the whole game taking photos, and it was so evident down the stretch. I tweeted after the game, Carolina State was just a better team. I mean, and maybe Carolina's more individually talented. I think that's even up for debate in some respects. But State, no doubt about it, was the better basketball team during that stretch, the more enthusiastic basketball team, and what a physical basketball team as well. And they deserved to win the game when it came down to it.
They accelerated in a way that Carolina hasn't really shown it could accelerate this year. Mm-hmm. It's like Carolina's tank only fills to here, and State's tank was full here, and they were going to use it all up. They were ready to take off like a rocket. And Carolina
credit to State
stood there just like helpless. The Heels looked almost helpless, which is really unfortunate because I saw up close to this group do something different last year. But I don't know. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
We talk about what this means, but it shouldn't be shocking, but it is shocking.
But it
shouldn't be shocking because we've seen it over and over and over. But you keep thinking, like I'm sure they are, at some point this is going to shift, and maybe it's not now.
Yeah, I'm kind of at a point that I don't think it is. Pretty confidently saying that. Let's keep it moving. I want to talk about. I know DJ Burns had a big game, but we have to throw Jarkel Joyner in there too. Carolina had no answers to those guys, particularly in the second half. Combined for 47 points in the game of State's 77. There's your game right there. They were unstoppable. Joyner made some absolutely highlight reel plays down the stretch, and even focusing on Burns, I think the most frustrating thing about Burns was Carolina never tried to do anything different with him. It was the same methodical, slow back down. No guard ever came over to help defend it. I just didn't see any adjustments on that side of the ball, which I think is frustrating as well. But those guys, I mean, man, they were the reason NC State won this game because I thought, like you said earlier, I thought Leaky did a fantastic job on Terquavian Smith. I mean, he looked incredibly uncomfortable out there for most of that game, particularly in the second half down the stretch. But they didn't need him today because Burns and Joyner were just so good. But for me, that's one of the most frustrating parts probably from a Carolina fan's perspective is, especially with Burns, I just didn't see any adjustments being made on how you defend him. It was the same methodical back down every time, and he scored most of the time as well.
Yeah, it's sort of like if a team is just running counter and dive plays on you and you're getting 8 yards a chunk. There's a feeling of helplessness, like, well, there's nothing we can do about it. And this is the game.
We're just going to let it happen.
At least with Joyner, if a guy's hitting threes, you got to figure, well, law of averages kick in all the time with threes, most of the time with threes. I don't think it's the same feeling of helplessness if you're a club or if you're rooting for a club that a guy is going off from various spots like Joyner was, but then they dump it down to a dude who gets it, backs in, turns and scores. And I'm a big believer that the best defense you play on a guy who's scoring and beating you at will is to just you don't get great defensively once he gets the ball. Get great defensively in keeping him from getting the ball. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Carolina ever fronted him, and I don't care if he gets the ball 15 feet away from the basket. That's where his offense begins. That's where it begins against a lot of teams. So front him out there. Try something different. Drop a guard. If there's a fear that if you drop a guard, someone else will score, you got to deal with that. You got to at least try to figure. It's like if a team is running the ball between the tackles constantly, you change your defensive strategy a little bit. You pack it a little bit more, and you put more guys. You put more guys in the box. Whatever. Carolina did absolutely nothing. They tried nothing. I asked Armando, was there a discussion of something, and Jake said. So I think that was a sense of helplessness that Carolina had a chance when he picked up 2 fouls in the first half to do something with the score, and they were unable to. I thought that there were missed opportunities with him out of the game. And then, Nance couldn't guard him. Armando did a better job because physically he's stronger. He's able to push him out. I think if you were to look at the distance between the release of the ball when Armando was covering him as opposed to when Nance was, it was shorter. closer to the goal when Nance was covering him. I'm surprised Jalen Washington didn't play. I'm not saying Jalen would have been able to stop him, but you know what? You front the guy. You front him with a guard or something like that. Force them to change and take that away from him. Force them to beat you another way. And if you got a guard in front and they're still going to throw the entry, that means they got to go high with the entry, which means maybe you can get it over the back or two or something like that. Or just force him to get rid of the ball. And give it to somebody else, because for a long time, State was struggling to score in other spots, but he was getting them buckets when they needed buckets and kind of keeping that thing together for a while, especially when Carolina was playing really well there for a stretch in the second half. So they didn't have any answers because it didn't appear that they tried any answers. Nance one-on-one, Armando even one-on-one wasn't going to work. They needed help, and they didn't get the help. The help wasn't attempted. So I think that that's something that I didn't ask Hubert after the game. I only got a couple questions in. There were other things I wanted to ask. I thought about asking about that, but I asked Armando, and he gave me the answer. So that's unfortunate. And maybe the concern was, look, we just can't let the other guys go off. His 2-pointers aren't going to beat us, but their 3-pointers are. Maybe that's what Hubert would have said. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
They had no answers for him. And if they play him again, they'll have no answers then again, because very few people do. And I don't know. You see a guy do it over and over and over, and they did nothing to change that course, which I thought was quite surprising.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my biggest criticisms of just this team this year. Is it, especially down over the last few weeks, it just doesn't seem like nothing new is being tried. It's just kind of the same old stuff, and it's not working. So you think eventually, and Hubert even said, correct me if I'm wrong, that changes were going to be made. Did we see that today?
Well, we can hit on that because we can hit on that in the next play. I think that's part of what this means. So we'll go to that. But I've got some thoughts about that, and I asked around the locker room, and I think that's what I'm writing my column about as well. So
well, let's talk about it, because throwing another stat at you, third thing I want to talk about: 15-49. Carolina was on layups and from three today. And AJ, Carolina 16-11. They're 8-8. What is game 27? There's not much time left in this season. I tweeted it out, but Carolina's NCAA tournament hopes are on a very, very, very thin thread, and the only thread that they really have to maybe potentially climb up on is the ACC tournament right now. So I think at this point, it's safe to say this is who this team is, because it's February 19th. Nothing. What is going to change in the next couple of weeks with where this team is? And even if something did change, it's almost too little, too late in the first place. You're going to be very, very hard pressed to find yourself in the tournament. So I know Carolina fans are frustrated. Heck, I know the team, I know the coaching staff are frustrated. But for me, we learned today, and even after the Miami game, I think what this team is. I told you after the game, it felt like Miami put a few nails in the coffin, but it felt like State hammered the rest home. And I think this team is, for lack of a better word, done. Now, who knows? Maybe they'll turn it around. Maybe they'll start winning a few games. Maybe they'll make a run in the ACC tournament. But the problem is, like we've talked about, time is running out. And in a lot of ways, I think time ran out today. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. But
let me
I think Carolina is who they are. Yeah.
Do you like vanilla? The flavor,
not my favorite flavor, but yeah.
But have you eaten it consistently throughout life?
Oh yeah, no doubt, 100%.
Has the flavor ever changed?
No, you get what you get.
Okay, vanilla is vanilla.
Yeah.
Chocolate's chocolate. Strawberry, strawberry. I think you're right. We know who this team is. This is the 2020. This is the 2022, 2023 North Carolina Tar Heels. I think this is who they are. There's no reason to think otherwise, because we've been given no evidence that it is anything other than what we've seen here in the last few weeks. They've lost 5 out of 6, I think. Is it 5 out of 6? I mean, the numbers.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's
pretty amazing. They're 0-10 now in quad one games. I don't even think at this point NCAA tournament should even be in the discussion with the kids in that room, because they just got to get a win.
Yeah,
we're almost
forget the tournament, man. You just got to win some games.
Yeah, their next game is at Notre Dame, which is February 22nd. So they're going to be in February 22nd, just needing to win. So right now, they shouldn't even be anywhere near the NCAA tournament. Now they can get their way back in there, which they have to win out. I wrote a column that I ran this morning saying they got 4 games in 9 days.
Yeah.
Easier task to win those 4 than have to go to Greensboro and win 4. Okay. So take care of that now, and then you don't have to worry about having to win at Greensboro. But they're putting themselves in a position now where if they don't win at Notre Dame, don't beat Virginia, don't win at Florida State, and don't beat Duke, then they have to win out in Greensboro to get into the NCAA tournament. But right now, that's not going to happen when this team just plays a good game. Clemson was the one outlier, but Clemson's sinking like a stone in a baby pool. And they're done. They're not going to make the tournament. And they have fallen off a cliff. So the one win this team has had since January 24th was over a team that's sinking maybe faster than they are.
Yeah.
So do we devalue the Clemson win? Yes and no. I still think they did a lot of good things in that game, and they shot well. 15 threes, 15 for 33 from three.
Carolina played pretty well in that game, yeah.
They're not, but the reason I told you to read those numbers with the layups and threes, 15 for 49, this is who they are. That Carolina was 8 for 27 on layups today. Carolina had 18 offensive rebounds and only 15 second chance points because they don't convert layups. They don't finish well at the rim. They have a lot of guys that try to lay it up instead of slam it. We can laundry list this stuff, and it's who they are. And it's unfortunate because I think that in a different universe, if everybody could go back to July, there's a chance that this could be a very different team. I just think that they kind of got off the rails, got a little bit back on, but not totally. And now they're back off the rails again, and they have absolutely no way of finding their way back on course unless suddenly they just hit a lot of shots. Let's face it, when they've played well in one game this year, they've hit a ton of shots, period. Mm-hmm. The way they play the game, the way they approach it, they talk about tweak, alters, and pivots and different combinations on the floor. We did see one combination for about a minute and 45 seconds, 2 minutes today, where it was Trimble, Puff, Nickel, Nance, and I don't know, maybe RJ or something like that.
Yeah, Caleb. Something like that.
It was an awkward lineup. But then Caleb picks up that technical, minute 10 left, he gets pulled, and Trimble goes in. And he's down in the corner. It was when he attempted that three. It was that possession. There was nobody from NC State within 30 feet, 25, 30 feet.
Yeah, I didn't get that. If he's in, you got to put him on the ball.
They made the media sit. Made the media sit in the hockey press box here today, so we could easily see the massive space between Trimble and everybody else on the court. He was wide open and he missed a three. And then on the next dead ball, Hubert puts DeMarco Dunn in on. DeMarco is a little bit known more for his shooting than Seth is. I was surprised that he went with Seth instead of DeMarco in that situation. Surprised DeMarco played 15 seconds or whatever it was. Surprised Jalen Washington didn't play. This is who
there's so many issues.
Part of who they are is the fact that Hubert just. He used the bench situationally there for a while, and we were lauding him for it. And when Pete was out, they had 4 straight games of someone from the bench scored double figures. And it has, if anything, since then. Puff played 22 minutes tonight. Trimble played 6. Nickel played 5. It's 33 minutes from your bench. And you got a team that's not forcing turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers. They had, 7 assists. So this week, they have 11 assists. There's a lot wrong, and I think a lot of it is structurally. A lot of it is not finding ways to make better use of the roster. I think a lot of it is in the minds of the kids. I think it's mentality. I asked RJ about what were some of the things that you guys tweaked, pivoted, and altered, and adjusted during the course of the week that you took with you into this game. And the first thing he said was mindset. So then I asked him a follow-up. I said, "You've said that to me 5 times this year. At what point?" Do you get to a point where there's no other ways to affect the mindset? I just think that making shots and winning a game would be it. But for the first time this year, talking to the kids in the locker room, I got the impression that they're out of answers. They're out of responses. Armando, for the 2 straight games now, when I've asked him a question about something very poignant, his response was saying twice, "I don't know." Looking you right in the eye and saying, "I don't know." And Armando is a guy who always has something to say and very thoughtful. I mean, he is someone that I've thoroughly enjoyed covering because he's such a sharp guy. He understands the moment. He knows when to play and toy, and he knows when to be serious. And the shock factor, the surprise factor that this just hasn't turned, and probably, I think today was more the reality that maybe it's not going to turn.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what gets it going. Maybe they've been thinking so much about when's it's going to turn. Maybe the best thing for them is, hey, it's not going to turn. Let's just go play this thing out, have fun, try to win a couple of games, and don't worry about anything else. Maybe that's the bottoming out, and that's what they need. But honestly, that's just guesswork right there. And for people who have a rooting interest, that's wishful thinking.
Oh, 100%.
They are what they are. six times this year they've had 6-point leads or more with 13 minutes or less left in the second half, and they lose those games. They won today. They out-rebounded State by like 16, and they lose. They have 18 offensive rebounds, and they lose.
It's not a very good basketball team.
They're not forcing turnovers. Yeah, I don't even know what the final stats were. Points in the paint. They're doing that again.
I mean, and not to mention they only shot 35% from the floor and 31% from three. I mean, you coming into PNC, I mean, you're asking a lot to come in here and win a game shooting like that.
You know what it is? You know what it is? You've got dudes that are dudes and that have had lots of dude moments, and collectively, you know, they did the Popeye thing last spring, and they allowed a 27-9 run.
Yeah.
Now, they allowed State to go 12 for its last 13. They were 5 for the last 22, 1 for 8 on layups in that stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They're so much better than that. And they should be so much better than that, but they haven't been. And right now they're not. And right now they're not an NCAA tournament team. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this thing finishes out, because as it is right now, they would have an opportunity to play in the NIT, and I'm not even sure that they would take that, because that would be a really weird thing for these kids to do. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with that, and I don't want to be insulting or anything, but it is what it is. I feel bad for these kids. I really do, because I like these kids. They're nice dudes.
It's a good group.
We've seen them with incredible highs and incredible lows. And I think tonight was maybe the second biggest low. The biggest low was Monday night in New Orleans when they blew a 15-point lead. But, you know, they had a 15-point lead at halftime, Jacob. It's like they haven't been the same since.
Yeah, I was going to say, the last thing I wanted to say is my kind of biggest criticism of, and I'm not trying to heap criticism on Hubert or the staff or anything like that, but this has just been my biggest criticism of the team this year is, for me, I haven't seen a staff that's been able to get the best out of the personnel at their disposal. And for me, that's the number one job of a coach. You have to be able to get the best out of the personnel that you have right there in front of you. And this is a talented team. It's not a bunch of 2-star guys walking around. This is a team that has parts and has talented guys. But it's surprising me the most, AJ, because Hubert didn't. The staff did such a good job of that during the run last year. He got the best out of the players that he had. And this year, we just haven't seen it. And like you said, I mean, in a lot of ways, you're right. Carolina hasn't been the same since the halftime of the national championship game. You're absolutely right about that.
So I asked Hubert last or next to last question. He didn't really answer it, but he sort of did. But I asked him.
Not what you were looking for, put it that way.
Yeah. To paraphrase here, he was talking about just keeping the same message to the kids. 4 games, there's a lot of time left in the season. You know, we can still reach our goals and all these kind of things. And he's not stressing over record and that kind of stuff. I said, but, you know, they're going to hear the outside noise. They can't avoid it. I mean, they told us that they know the outside noise today in the locker room. And I said, so how does your messaging have to cut through that? And he said, they don't have to hear the outside noise. So it told me that he just doesn't want to go there, or maybe he's not, maybe because he didn't have to deal with outside noise in the same way, although he did play New York. So he had a lot of it, and 500 newspapers covering him and all those sports stations spewing the crap that they do. But it's different now when you don't have to look at a newspaper or turn on the radio. You just lay in bed and see your phone.
Yeah.
Or your mentions are going off like crazy. You can't really escape it. So I wouldn't think that anybody coaching in college sports right now would believe that their kids would just completely block it out. Big part of who they are, especially in the NIL era, is brand, our own brand, your platform. And these guys hoisted themselves up on the platforms big time last season, and rightfully so, and good for them. They deserved it, they earned it, and they took advantage of it. I think that's fantastic. That's what NIL is for. But you can't then suddenly turn it off. You can't avoid it, because it's going to be on campus. It's going to be everywhere. And we go in the locker room, ask the questions that we do. And they understand. They're smart dudes. They're far more mature than a few years ago. They understand why we're asking the questions, and they don't have answers. They do not have answers today. But they know that the noise is there, because the questions are a lot about the noise. They know what Lenardi's saying. They know what all the angry, inebriated people on Twitter are saying. They know it. Trust me, they know. And sometimes maybe they even communicate with some of these people because they're frustrated. So I don't know, maybe the messaging that Hubert has, maybe he's just telling us that, because a lot of coaches say not that they're
coach speaking away, it's just that,
yeah, but it's not, and I'm not going to say dishonest. that would be totally wrong. I've been around long enough. I understand. Look, they're just not going to let certain things out. And that's fine. They have every right to do that. I'm totally fine with that. I've seen a lot of great coaches do things that way, and it's okay. Especially when you're winning, people never question it. What I'm saying is that it's there. So whatever messaging he's giving them behind closed doors has to cut through the noise. Otherwise, 16-11 now, who's to say Notre Dame doesn't hit 15 threes Wednesday night? Notre Dame played right down to the wire at Duke and had a shot. Goodwin's shot goes in. They beat Virginia yesterday.
I know.
In Charlottesville. And then they got Virginia, which is a nemesis, and then they got to go to Florida State, which is 4,000 people, and
they always struggle in Tallahassee too.
In the Tucker Center, and then they got Duke, and Duke's got Whitehead back, and they're better now than Carolina played them last time. So,
yeah.
I know somebody who helped raise me, and it's not my mom, who used to say one game at a time. He told me that all the time when I played, and even in covering teams, he tells me one game at a time. And yeah, I guess it's one game at a time because the only thing they can focus on now is the next one and just get a win. They got to stop the bleeding, get a win, and get themselves to Saturday with a chance to get another one because they have 2 more Q1 opportunities left if Duke wins some games. And that's the other part about this that we can close on. Carolina fans have to root for Duke to win games now. So Duke is a quad 1 game, not only when they arrive in Chapel Hill, but stay a quad 1 game if they lose that one and also lose in Greensboro. Because Miami was not a quad 1 when they entered Chapel Hill, but they left as a quad 1 because that win put him at number 30. So Carolina, if they're going to get 2 more quad 1 wins in a regular season, they have to beat Duke in one of them. It means Duke has to win games. So crazy times. Carolina fans have to root for Duke now.
Yeah, it is, man. If you would have told me, 6 months ago or 7 months ago that, Carolina was going to come into Raleigh 16-10 and NC State was going to be the ranked team and not Carolina, I would have thought you're absolutely psychotic for saying something like that. But that's the reality Carolina finds themselves in. And AJ, I'll end it with this. They only got themselves to blame. You can't look at them, point fingers at anybody else. It's a team that just hasn't been able to do it this year for whatever 50 to 100 different reasons. Yeah.
Everybody in that room.
Yeah, no doubt. Some people just like to blame the coaches. Some people just like to blame Pete Nance as a scapegoat because he's not playing great. And some people say this guy's not good. And there's so many different problems with this team. And unfortunately, they just haven't really been able to figure out. And like you said, they've gotten back on the tracks at times, but the train has been derailed for the most part. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. So I always like to say, AJ, we don't come on here and make stuff up. The team dictates what we report, what we say. So I guess we'll see what the heck happens on Wednesday night, right?
Okay, I'll close very quickly. I just think it's fascinating. From a journalistic
standpoint,
this is fascinating. It's fascinating to me to cover this. It's fascinating to walk in that room. And I feel for the kids. I feel like they're going through this.
Yeah, the human element. It's hard not to.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but at the same time, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. They'll learn some life lessons from this, and who knows? Maybe the story has just only partially been told. We'll see. I kind of think that maybe an exclamation mark is coming at some point.
Yeah, but
not a comma. Mm-hmm. Maybe not a new graph. Since I'm going all journalism here,
so we might be on the final paragraph. Yeah, I mean, what like you said, you hit the nail on the head earlier, AJ. What evidence do we have to suggest that this is going to get turned around in any way, shape, or form? We don't. I mean, that's the fact of the matter. We just don't have anything to hold our heads on except for what happened, a year ago almost now. So I think that's irrelevant at this point. So, yeah.
It's been irrelevant. It's been irrelevant since mid-April.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, man. You're absolutely right. In hindsight, you're absolutely right. But AJ, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. We'll obviously talk more about this in our midweek show, UNC basketball show. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure that'll be another fascinating episode with a lot of stuff to talk about. Because like I said, we could sit here for another hour and talk, but I think we might get kicked out of this arena before too long. So I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another episode of our Three Things post-game podcast. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And I know you guys probably don't want to read about the game anyway, but head on over to TarIllustrated.com. Link is below to hear about the game. I mean, I got to keep it real, AJ. I mean, if the best writer in the house right here, but still, I know a lot of Carolina fans are probably just want to focus on baseball season to say the least.
I think that they'll appreciate the column because I know what I'm going to write. So
yeah, I know what you're going to write too, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So guys, stay tuned for that. If you want to sign up, just $8.33 a month. Links in the description below. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.